Hello, I am Stephen Calhoun.
And
I'm joined by,
I'm Emily Tompkins.
and this is Come and Make It. This is the first episode of a show that Veryable is producing, and we'll be covering a lot of topics. Today, we're starting with what we know and something we get a lot of questions about, and it's about what we do as a company and the model that we are pioneering here. So, what is on-demand labor?
Yeah, so on-demand labor is basically a model that connects businesses with workers only when they have a need. And on-demand labor is going to be able to help companies maintain less full-time employees, and they can tap into this sort of flexibility so they can ramp up whenever they have a spike in demand. But specifically, Veryable, we are focused on the manufacturing, distribution, and supply chain vertical. So that's pretty much what we do.
Yeah, and I think it's worth before we get into diving deeper into this topic, explaining kind of your experience specifically in this field and in on-demand labor and what you've seen it do and businesses experience with that, because you have some experience, right? Like visiting with businesses and talking to them about it. So what have you seen there that makes you think this is what people need?
Yeah, well, I've met with multiple different businesses, and a lot of them kind of come back to the same thing. Like, we need something that helps us to, flex up and flex back down quickly and easily so we can, continue to capture like those orders that come in. Or, also like the landscape is kind of changing these days. Like, businesses are experiencing like 100% turnover. Like, they cannot retain people that want to stay in this field for the next 30 years and work in, pick pack. So the landscape is kind of changing. And the only way to kind of keep up with that is to tap into like this flexible workforce. But also it's enabling businesses to grow, take on more orders. Also, I feel like people are really kind of conditioned to want things immediately. And how are you going to do that? Like, you can't just be, you have to kind of be average nowadays. Like the bar is set to be, we need to get these orders out in 3 days because people want their items quickly. So how are you going to do that?
Right.
You can't do that with the traditional, full-time model. So you need something that's going to help you to be more agile and flexible so you can get things out and, continue to delight your customers. Because at the end of the day, that's really what's important.
Right. Every company out there in this space is really just trying to keep their company afloat a lot of the times, and then grow their company if they're past that point. And that takes being quick on your feet. That takes having the right people there to do the work. So let's get into some of these capacity planning challenges. Now, that's something that, we've seen get people in some tight spots because it's impossible to plan for everything.
Yeah.
And especially the past couple of years, it's been hard to know what's coming next.
Yeah.
Because, like it says here, if you're watching this live, you'll see it's that uncertainty is impossible to avoid. And something we talk about a lot is the dependence on forecasting. I think forecasting is great. I think we've made a lot of advances in math that's way over my head that helps people have at least a decent idea of what's coming in, but it's always going to be at least a little bit inaccurate. So could you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, and also like the manufacturing distribution, like landscape, it's very cyclical. So it's very much up and down. So having just the same number of employees every single day, that's not going to help you. So say, when demand spikes, what are you going to do? You typically have like 3 levers that you can pull on. So that's either like paying overtime for existing labor, you're going to go out and find new labor, or you're going to have to turn down orders. All of those can be really costly to your business, but also say, you have too many people on the floor and there's not enough things to do. So you're basically paying labor that you don't need right then. So, like we said before, like, it's a guessing game. And even if you forecast as close as possible to what you need, there's still going to be some, variation there. And how can you kind of combat that? Basically on-demand labor. So you staff to like the average that you need, the average number of full-time employees you need to get your orders out the door, to get the work completed. And then you can tap into that flexibility that on-demand labor provides. So you can ramp up when you need to and kind of ramp back down. That could change, day to day. That could be seasonally. That could be project-based. So basically on-demand labor is the solution to that.
Yeah, and right now we have on screen like this is what I call jokingly the squiggly lines. It really just helps illustrate what's going on in a lot of facilities. So that middle, I believe it's yellow line that's labeled average. That's kind of the average demand that people see coming in, and then you have a minimum below that where that's when, I mean, people call it different things. I've heard skeleton crew.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows how that feels when you're running on like, you've got just enough people in there. That can actually be good sometimes if that's all you need to get done that day. And then on the flip side of that, though, there's where it's at its peak. And you see on the left chart there, it's labeled bright orange because that's when you're having to pay overtime and you're having to ask people to stay extra hours and you're having to scramble to get things done. That's where people most immediately tend to see how on-demand labor can help because they're seeing, I need to get people in the door. But it's important to also look at the other side of that where it dips and see that it's okay to be flexed down when you need to flex down. And if you're staffed to that average, you can't do that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just making your business like more efficient and, you're solving those operational issues because everything is so up and down. It's going to change from day to day. Maybe the morning is busier than the afternoon and maybe you need to bring additional, workers in to help you get those orders out in the morning. And then maybe by the afternoon, you don't need that. So it changes, it's varying constantly. And that's kind of what on-demand labor does is help solve those issues.
Right. So that's some of the problems that it's solving. Its capacity planning is a big one, a big part of what's going on. So now we want to move into the how of how it works. It's pretty simple, I think, straightforward, at least we hope it is. That's how we're working on designing it to be. So when you look at it, it breaks down into basically 3 steps. You post a work opportunity, qualified workers bid on that, and then you get to choose who works it. The interesting thing here is, well, there's a few interesting things, but having qualified workers, that's a big deal. That's a box people need to check. They need to know that who they're bringing in is good in their facility. So kind of, I think I would let you talk on like how Veryable ensures that these are qualified people.
Yeah. I mean, so the good thing about our platform is whenever you post an op, you're going to receive multiple bids from operators. But the cool thing is with Veryable, they kind of have like a live resume so that you can see, you click on their name, you see a drop down, you're going to see all the companies that they've worked at on our platform. So you can see if they are kind of similar to your business, but also you can see, do they have any other certifications? What other businesses that they've worked at that maybe aren't on our platform, but they've worked there previously. You can see what their overall rating is, which is a big thing, So operators are rated after they complete an op, and they're going to be rated on proficiency, safety, timeliness, and attitude, which is great because you're like, okay, if they're a 4 or 5 star operator, like they probably do really good work. I want to bring them into my facility, but you can also see how far away they are from your business. So you get to know a little bit more about them before they even come into your business and complete the work that you need, which is, I think a huge, benefit to our platform because with, other traditional models, you don't really get to know who's coming into your facility or if they have the desired skill set that you want or if they have any sort of experience. So you're kind of just going in blind. But with our platform, I feel like businesses can kind of take the power back in their hands and pick and choose who they want to come in to complete that work.
Yeah. And that's a big deal for a lot of businesses, and especially in a situation where you're bringing people in that you've never met before.
Yeah.
And I think the cool thing about the rating system is that it's transparent.
Yeah.
Like and businesses provide these ratings. Veryable doesn't sit down and do the ratings. That's not what we do. So you're getting full transparency into every business they work with. Every time they show up to work, they're getting a rating.
Well, and also it incentivizes operators that, I need to go in and do good work because if I don't, it's going to, affect my overall rating. And if I don't have maybe the most competitive rating, I may not get selected for future ops or, I kind of what they say, like the cream rises to the top, like the hard workers, the dedicated people that go in and do a good job, they're going to get a really good overall rating and they're probably going to have more access to more ops and more work opportunities in the future because they are, going in and doing a good job and making sure that their rating is competitive and in a good spot.
Right. So it's working on both sides.
Yeah.
It's really working for the operators as it's an incentive to do a good job. It's also something that you can be proud of. You can go to work, get done, go home and see, all right, I got a 5-star rating because I crushed it today.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good for both sides there.
Yeah.
And I guess we can move now into when on-demand labor is a good fit, because you might be hearing about all this and think, all that sounds great. But I don't know if I need it because I already have people, or I have, I just had this problem solved. But for people who maybe don't think they have it all together yet, then how do they know when it fits? Or maybe even if you're not seeing how this could fit, let's just explore a few ways.
Yeah, I think on-demand labor is a good solution for any company in the supply chain, distribution, or manufacturing space that deals with constant volatility in their demand, like it's constantly up and down. Like we said earlier, this space is very cyclical. So if you're experiencing any of that, you're probably going to be a good candidate, and on-demand labor is going to benefit your company immensely. But also, like I mentioned earlier, times are changing. People aren't wanting to go and work in a factory or a distribution site for 30 years doing pick and pack. Like, you have to kind of tap into this if you want to be competitive and, stay with the times. It's also a scalable solution. So, you can kind of tailor it to fit any different type of business and scenario that you're in. But I think it's a good solution for businesses that kind of face those challenges.
Yeah. And I think that maybe more in the past, we've had a lot of people say, my demand doesn't really vary that much. Now, I highly doubt that's the case nowadays with everything that's going on. It's very hard to claim that things are steady or stable for your business. But I would say most people have that variable demand, like you mentioned, and it may not vary drastically, but there are variations, and it's kind of a matter of moving beyond good enough.
Well, and you also have to think you're going to have call outs. So maybe your demand isn't as volatile as it is in certain other companies, but you're going to have call offs. You're going to have people that are going to be on vacation. So you're going to deal with that side of it as well. So what are you going to do to combat that? Are you going to go out there and hire more people? That's going to take forever. Are you going to, pull that lever for overtime? Well, maybe the people that are currently working don't want that, or they're already overworked. So, or are you going to decline the orders? What are you going to do? Or, maybe you're not, hitting those KPIs that you have set in place for yourself.
Yeah.
So what's the best thing to do? Probably tap into a flexible workforce and call on people to come in, so you make sure that you're still getting those orders out the door.
Right. That's the power of it. It fits right into what you need done. And that's kind of the whole point with the variable demand, is that it's there when you need it, and it's not when you don't.
Yeah.
And that's one use case. That's probably the broadest way that we talk about using on-demand labor. Another one would be utilization. So a lot of the times companies maybe have trouble keeping a certain bottleneck running all the time. Like if you have one specialized machine and it slows your whole process down, you need that running as much as possible. And this is where we like to tell the orthodontist story. And you've probably told it 100 times, and I've told it maybe twice. So I'll let you handle that one.
Yeah. I mean, so technically, or I guess typically, whenever you think of an orthodontist, so you want them to be, checking people's braces most of the time. So you have more of like the chairside assistant that's doing the setup, the cleanup, all of that stuff. And you want to keep the orthodontist doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I think more in a manufacturing setting, it would be, think of like a CNC operator or worker. You want them running that CNC machine for 8 hours out of the day, or however long they're supposed to be there. But what if they are only doing it for 4 hours out of the day because they have to go and do setup, prep, cleanup? Well, you're probably losing out on some, productivity, because they're not running that machine as long as they need to. So instead, you can tap into on-demand labor or our platform and bring in operators that can do more of that generalized work to keep your more specialized, position doing what they need to be doing. So running that machine, or if it's a welder, you want them welding for 8 hours of the day instead of 4 hours, and then they're doing cleanup or prep. So you can utilize variable to keep those specialized positions or those machines doing what they need to be doing, and getting more productivity out of them.
Right. And I feel like that's relatable to a lot of people too. It's like, I'm sure that most of us can relate to a situation where you're at work and maybe it's a previous job, maybe it's your job now. You felt like you're asked to do something and your first knee-jerk reaction is, this isn't my job. Like that's how people feel when they're doing a very specialized task.
Exactly.
They also have to do like set up and tear down and all this other stuff, when if you could take that burden off their plate, they can get a lot more done.
And it's like, think of if you had someone, kind of doing more of the general task, how much more you could get out of an 8-hour day or whatever that time, that length of time is. How much more productive would you be? So by utilizing Veryable, it really helps this type of scenario.
Right. The next one we would talk about is seasonal demand. This one, a lot of people relate to. I think it's especially prevalent in different industries. Like I could think of, beverage distribution. Everybody wants to crack cold ones in the summer. You're at the beach, you want a cold drink. It's hot outside. So a lot of seasonal effects come into play. And then like with the holidays, of course, that's big for a lot of companies.
Yeah, especially like a lot of retail companies, they know what their busier seasons are. They know when they're going to have spikes. But how are they going to deal with that? Traditionally, you could start hiring. I hear a lot of companies are like, okay, well, we're going to have a spike in Q3, Q4. So we're going to start hiring now in Q2. We're just going to try and staff up as much as possible to deal with that influx of demand that we're going to have, which in theory like sounds okay, but it's really costly. Also, it's time consuming and it's just not the best option out there. So instead, they can build up a labor pool over time. So, they know that Q3, Q4 are going to be their really busy season. And then probably throughout the year, they're going to have a few spikes here and there. So what they can do is, really spend some time building up a, large enough labor pool of qualified operators that they want to call on whenever they do have those surges in demand. And it's just going to be a lot more, economically friendly to their company. And also they can scale up and scale down quickly. And they're going to have more agility and flexibility to deal with those demand swings and, be a lot more successful in those seasons. Because during that time of year, you have to make sure that you're getting orders out on time because people want their product or the gifts that they've ordered. So it's really important that you're meeting those deadlines, you're hitting those KPIs that you have set for yourself and just making sure that you're making your customers happy.
Right. I would think especially around that time too, because that's very important personally to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it gets a lot of bad reputation because that's the time that people are going to talk about like, oh, I ordered, product X from this company and it never showed up. And, that's something people will talk about, that at least to the person they tried to buy the gift for.
Then, exactly. Or they'll just be like, I'll just go to Amazon and buy something from there because I'll get it overnight, which they don't have to do that.
We're trying to help solve this problem.
Yes.
So that's seasonal demand. I think we covered that pretty well there. Project demand. This is the fourth example that we're going to cover here. So on-demand labor helps scaling up for, however long it takes to get a project knocked out and then scale right back down. You don't have to do kind of like with seasonal demand. You don't have to do this crazy hiring spree and then kind of jerk people around like, oh, we need you. Oh, now we don't need you. It's something where you can have transparency around, I need a worker to come in for these 3 or 4 days. And then that's the end of that arrangement.
Well, and it's really seamless too. Kind of like what I said with seasonal demand. So project-based as well, you build up a robust labor pool and then you can tap into that when you need to, but you're going to be able to, spike up or you're going to be able to, flex your labor capacity up. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's a month, maybe it's a 2 or 3 days, but you can flex up quickly and then flex back down while still keeping your labor costs fairly low. But you're also going to be able to decrease overtime and you're going to be able to decrease burnout. All of these things that a lot of these companies suffer from. So it's just a great solution for that as well.
Yeah. And one thing we haven't touched on yet that's, or if we touched on it, I think I'd just like to go a little bit deeper here on the idea of a labor pool. As you mentioned, you bring people in when you need them. And then what the platform a Veryable allows you to do is add them to, it's essentially a favorites list.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, that the next time you need to bring people in, whether that's a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, next year, you go in and you already have a favorites list of people because they've worked there, you've rated them, and then you bring them back in. And so in a situation like project-based demand, you might have a big project come in February, and then 6 months later, you have another big project come in, and you've got 6 people who came in last time that you really liked. Now you just invite those same 6 people, and you could be a lot more certain that they've already been trained, they're up to speed, and then you go.
Yeah, they can easily be, plugged into your business, and they know how everything works, how, what's expected of them, and, they can help you get the product out the door.
Yeah. So part of the flexible capacity, a huge part, is this labor pool idea. And then there are benefits that come with having that flexibility. I think we're going to throw the top 5 up here. There's access to skilled and vetted labor, quick response to demand swings, no third-party commitment required, no administrative costs, and 0 cost to scale. Access to skilled and vetted labor, we talked about earlier, quick response to demand swings. The no third-party commitment required, that's an interesting part there. I feel like a lot of companies don't like to be committed to stuff, especially a new thing.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the beauty of our platform. Like, you basically sign up, you create a profile. The only time you ever have to pay for anything is basically whenever you have workers come in the door, they complete the work. And once it's done, then that's basically what you pay for. There's no, contract that you have to enter into. So that's the beauty of it. It's like, okay, I can try this out, and that's it. Like, I just pay for the labor that comes in and works. That's great. Like, I don't have to lock into like a year-long contract or 2-year-long contract. There's no minimum hour requirements that, I have to meet. And I think a lot of people, whenever you're trying something new, especially within a space like this, like on-demand labor is a fairly new concept to a lot of people. They're a little hesitant about it sometimes. Like, okay, if I don't have to lock into anything, like, sure, I'll try this out. And, probably 99% of the time businesses are like, this is awesome, I'm going to continue doing this. But I think it kind of eases them into the process, and they're like, okay, I think I can try this out without, being too nervous about it.
Right. And with, no admin cost and no cost of scaling up, it's what is there to lose?
Like, you don't have to worry about, typically those admin costs, like onboarding people or hiring. Like, you basically just post on the platform, you pick who you want to come in. Also on our side, operators are paid through the platform. They're paid the next day. And then the businesses are invoiced for the amount of work that was done in their facility that week. So basically all of the admin, all those administrative burdens are taken off the business. They can just focus on making their business more operationally efficient and, making sure everything runs smoothly, so they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And that's the key. What you just said is operational efficiency. That's the difference here. And that's the focus of on-demand labor, is that it's focused on the efficiency of your operation. So what's coming in the door that day or the next day, and then you post for it, and then it's taken care of. Yeah.
Like, you should be focusing on how to make your business better. How are we going to not just be average, but be exceptional? Like, that's what you need to be focusing on, not all the other, admin things that you have to deal with or that come along with it. So that's the cool part of it.
Yeah. And so just quick recap here, like, we've kind of covered a lot, but we talked about what on-demand labor is and how that allows you to flex your labor capacity up and down day to day. It's very low friction and it happens quickly. And then this is qualified labor because they have been background checked and then they're rated by every business.
Yes.
We don't do the rating.
No.
That's every business doing that. So builds this kind of meritocracy. And then we talked about the idea of a labor pool and how that allows you to work with the people you like again in the future. So that, in a nutshell, is what on-demand labor is about. Thanks for joining us this week. We've covered a lot. If you have questions, leave a comment, reach out to us on the website. That's www.variableops.com. That's variable, like our brand name, VERYABLEOPS.com, for those of you on audio only. We're going to cover a lot more topics in the future. And this episode might have seemed a bit self-serving. We're starting with what we know. This is our model. We believe in it. That's why we're talking about it. So tune in next time. Until then, have a great week, month, year.
Yeah, have a great summer. Have a great everything.
This was Come and Make It.